But in this one, we are following a York? No. In this, we are following a York. Oh my god. These are my rules, my game. Hey friends, it's Robin. Welcome back to my channel. Today is part 3 of my romance reader's guide to fantasy romance. And today we're going to be talking about monsters and aliens. So this is a subgenre that I would say has really blown up in the last couple of years, especially with the introduction of Book Talk. I feel like everyone now is reading monsters and alien romances. You see this with Katie Roberts' books. You see this with the Ice Planet Barbarians. This is definitely a subgenre that can get quite weird. So I'm going to kind of go over where these fall in the least monstrous to most monstrous, I guess. So some of these are very humanoid-esque, and they are better for beginners of monster romance. And then there are ones that are very monstrous. So those are going to be ones you might want to ease into, not because they are in any way spicy or anything, but it can be quite difficult with monster romances to figure out where appendages are at certain moments. I'm just going to structure this exactly the same way as the last video. So we're going to start off with what is monster romance? Where does it fall into the fantasy umbrella? We're going to go over some recommendations, and then we will do a tri-chapter at the end. So kicking it off with what is monster and alien romances. So everyone has their own idea of what is going to fall into a monster romance. So for me, a monster romance is not the same as paranormal. I would never classify vampires or shifters or angels as monster romances because those creatures look mostly human. Like I said, everyone's gonna have their own definitions of what is monstrous. This is another one, just like with last week's with the angels and demons, that can cross into both your low fantasy and high fantasy and everything in between. You can have monsters set in our everyday world, whether it is just like an alternate reality or a post-apocalyptic sort of deal. You can have things set in high fantasy worlds, totally fake fantasy worlds. And you can have things that are kind of in between with your portal fantasies. I'm going to kind of give you a couple of recommendations for each of them. And it's going to be the same thing with aliens. So you can have alien romances that are set in our world and the aliens have come to our world, or you can have full-on sci-fi ones that are set on a different planet or in space. For me, they kind of end up overlapping quite a bit since a lot of your aliens tend to be non-humanoid, or while they might be humanoid, they have monstrous qualities, whether it's their size, scales, tails, all of those types of things, which is why I ended up blending these together. So let's just get right into the recommendations. I'm going to start off with some low fantasy ones, and both of these are kind of post-apocalyptic. So first we have Love Laugh Lich by Kate Pryor, and this is an office place monster romance, and this world is kind of post-apocalyptic in the sense that the world is now ran by demons and monsters. So there was some sort of monstrous uprising, and now all of the CEOs are demons and monsters. And in this one, we are following a lich. And this lich is the CEO of this company, and our heroine is their personal assistant. And the two of them have a very spicy workplace romance. And this is definitely a good place to start because in this one, we're set in a real world with everyday people, and the monstrous aspects of this are not overly monstrous. So our hero is a humanoid shape, but they do not have a million appendages, and they are easy to visualize in your head. And then the next one I would say is like a little bit more monstrous, but it is still set in our world, just a post-apocalyptic version of our world, and that is Soul Eater by Lily Mayne. Just like in the previous one, in this world, monsters have risen, and when monsters came to Earth, society kind of crumbled, and now the center of the United States is desolate, and humanity lives on the coasts where they can better protect themselves from the monsters. In this world, the military is now all about trying to capture and learn about the monsters, and our human main character in this book kind of fell into this military role because he had no family left and he had no direction and he didn't know what to do. And he is sent out as bait for this monster. While he is standing there and the monster rises, he realizes that he is a human sacrifice and he drops his weapon and wakes up, and the monster has been captured and he is the only survivor. And now the only person that the monster will talk to is him, and him and the monster have a romance. This monster is, again, pretty monstrous, but not so monstrous that you cannot easily picture it. He doesn't really have a face for the majority of this book. Can't see it. It's like cloaked in shadow. You are following these two characters as they kind of travel around this monstrous wasteland, and you get to meet a bunch of different monsters, and this entire series is following different monstrous creatures and their human companions. Soul Eater does have some darker themes in it, and it does have some content warnings, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's still a really fun romance. From there, I'm gonna go into a good example of a portal fantasy. I will say that this isn't my favorite one. I gave this 3.5 stars, but I know that the series is really well loved, and that is The Dragon's Bride by Katie Robert. This is the perfect example of a portal fantasy. Story kicks off with our heroine in the real world, and she makes a deal with a demon. In order to hold up her end of the bargain, she has to go to this demon realm and marry one of the monstrous beings in this demon realm. And so she travels from the human realm into a totally fantastical realm, and she ends up becoming the bride to a dragon. And the two of them have a romance. Like I said, this isn't my favorite monster romance ever. I thought it was a good time. Kitty Robert always does a really good job with her steamy scenes, and this does have a very cute romance in it. Even though our hero is a dragon and he is obviously not human, it is still a very sweet romance, and our hero really worships the heroine and tries to woo her. And this is another one that is a good way to dip your toe in, because this isn't, like I said, overly monstrous. He is a dragon and he has a tail and things like that, but you understand what this shape looks like. And this is another good one if you want to start getting into some more monster romances. Plus, once you get into this one, there are a bunch of other books in this series, and some of the other creatures in here are slightly monstrous than others. Going into some more higher fantasy ones, the Fangs with Benefits series by Aveda Weiss. This is an overarching series that has multiple series inside of it. So we're going to start with Feed and Yours Insatiably, which is the first series in this overarching series. But Feed and Yours Insatiably follow the same characters. This is following a non-binary Mothman who is falling in love with a succubus. They have a workplace romance, and these are absolutely fantastic. I will say that this is kind of a step up on your monstrous monsters, because our Mothman has appendages. And if you are unfamiliar with all of these appendages, it can be a little tricky to get into at first. There are a lot of things that happen. He can unroll his tongue. He has these little antennae things that come out of him. He has wings. There are a lot of monstrous aspects to our Mothman main character. And on top of that, our succubus main character, while she is a humanoid, she does eventually become slightly more monstrous, and there are a lot of other monsters in the series. So I really, really like this one. I gave Yours Insatiably 5 stars. It is fantastic, and this is one of my favorite Aveda Weiss series. And then the next part of this is Skin and Inextricably Tied. I have only read Skin so far, and this is again the 0.5 to Inextricably Tied. And we do meet these characters briefly in Yours Insatiably. It is not really connected in any way other than the fact that they are set in the same world. And in Skin, we are following our heroine, who is a hunter, and her bodyguard, Gargoyle. I would say you can read them in any order in which you want, but if you are looking to kind of get into this entire world, this is technically part 2. And then part 3 is probably the most fantastical of them. And in that one, we have Bound and the unreleased first book in that series. We have a were-lynx, a were something, and a harpy. if I'm remembering correctly. In this one, we are following the end of a war in which the Harpies lost, and now our heroine is being taken by these two wares, and there is a lot of dubious consent in here, but it is a captor-captive romance, and we are getting the full-length book for them super soon. So that is kind of the order of the Fangs with Benefits umbrella series by Aveda Weiss. I am obsessed with this world, and I would say that if you are interested in getting into Aveda Weiss, or you're looking to take that next step into monster romances, I highly recommend the series. It's a great time. It does such a great job with the monsters while still having that really good chemistry between the characters and the steaminess and all of the things. And then we have a very high fantasy one, and that is Green-Eyed Monster by Elsie Winters. This is another novella that does have a full-length novel that comes after it, but I haven't read the full-length novel yet. In this, we are following an orc. The heroine is really into gardening, and she needs a place to grow her plants, and the orc has this massive crush on her, and so he invites her to plant things in his backyard, and the two of them have the cutest friends to lovers romance. This is also set kind of like at a magical school, I guess. It feels very university-esque. Like I said, it's very short. It's very, very sweet. This is one of the cutest, sweetest monster romances I've ever read, especially given this cover, which makes this hero look like he's going to be big and scary, but he is the biggest softie in the whole world. And I really, really like this one. Again, if you're looking for some high fantasy monsters, this is the perfect one without being too monstrous. And then we're going to end off this section with the one alien romance recommendation that I have, and that is Captive of the Horde King by Zoe Draven. Apparently this series was crazy popular a couple years ago, and I missed it. But this is a really fun alien romance that has both human characters as well as aliens. So in this world, humans have traveled all over the galaxy, and they now live on a bunch of different planets. And our heroine lives on this planet with these other aliens, and they have Horde Kings. And this alien race feels very much like the Dothraki from Game of Thrones. And right at the beginning of the book, our heroine, her brother ends up lighting a fire, which is against the laws of this planet. And the Horde King comes to figure out what is happening, and our heroine sacrifices herself to save her brother. In this world, the humans are struggling because they don't know how to survive on this planet, and society has kind of abandoned them, and they are not getting the food and resources that they need. And so our heroine goes with this alien race, and he makes her his queen, and she kind of learns all about the planet and how to work with the planet and why the aliens have been so mad at them, and kind of convinces him to help her race, all while learning about their race. And it is a really, really great alien romance. This is another one with a fantastic worshipping hero who is just utterly obsessed with our heroine. This has a couple of tropes that I normally don't like in it, but I ended up loving them in here. And this does have a full completed series, so if you do love this one, you have a bunch more books that you can binge through this as well. So that is all I have for the recommendations. I do have a lot more monster romances that I've read, but I think these are some of my favorites and do a good job of giving some examples of low and high fantasy, as well as some steps that you can take as you are trying to get into monster romances, where to start and where to go from there. So let's talk about my TBR, because I have another 5 books to talk about. I have 1 alien romance and then a couple of monster romances. Let me go quickly pull up these books, because once again, I don't actually know the synopsis of these, so I will be right back. Okay, so I have my laptop here. I also have a cat, because of course I have a cat. So I'm just gonna go through these really quick, share the synopses and all of that, and then we are gonna go through and read the first chapter of them. So first is a new to me author. I know nothing about this book. This was 100% a cover buy, and that is Not So Kind Regards by Clio Evans. This popped up on my Kindle at some point, and I saw this cover, and I had to own it. So this is book 1 in the Warts and Claws Inc. series. So the synopsis for this one says that Inferna expected many things to happen, but sparks flying between her and her office rival, and his lover was not one of them. It says that Kaylin is a nerdy witch omega that she wants to sink her teeth into, while Art is a stuck-up boss. It says it's a spicy monster office romance, fated mates, BDSM, and more. I'm sold. It looks like MMF. I'm here for it. It sounds fantastic. Then we have Eden, which is book 2 in the Monstrous series. So this is the book that comes after Soul Eater. So we are following our demon, Eden, and Eden is a giant purple monster, and I believe that this is also an MM romance. So it sounds like our hero is another military person. Circumstances force me together with a big, annoying purple monster who's arrogant, bossy, and pushes all of my buttons in the worst and best ways. I need his help, and I hate needing anyone's help, but the more time I spend with him, the more I realize that maybe there's more to him than what I need. It sounds fantastic. Like I said, this is a post-apocalyptic world, and I've been desperate to continue on with this one. However, this book is over 400 pages, which is why I keep putting it off. Then we have Titan by Gillian Graves, which is the first book in the Romancing His Stone series. And I think I just saw this one floating around during one of the monster romance readathons or something like that. This is a gargoyle romance as far as I can tell. It says a former child star loses everything to her shady managers, and she'll do whatever it takes to win her independence back, even if it means rushing to find a new sugar daddy. When Titan, a wealthy businessman, makes her an offer she can't refuse, she soon realizes he may not be what he seems. His curved horns, massive wings, and ribbed tail are, however, more than what she bargained for. I love it. A sugar daddy gargoyle romance? Love it. Then we have the one alien romance, which is Quark by Nikki Clark. I'm not 100% if I'm pronouncing that correct, but is the Laika Planet Lovers series. So it sounds like this one is following a hero who travels to the human planet for his birthday, for him and his twin brother, and their species thrives on giving and receiving pleasure, and then he sends his mate. That's all I know about it at this point. An entire alien race that is obsessed with giving pleasure sounds like absolute perfection. So I'm very excited for that one. And then the last one I'm going to read for this is Inextricably Tied by Veda Weiss, which I did talk about in the recommendations. This is book 1 in the Lost Touch duet. So this is following a banshee and a gargoyle, and our banshee's name is Harbinger, and our hero's name is Flint. And our heroine cannot be touched skin to skin, and this is a romance between the two of them, as well as a night terror. That's all I need to know about it. Like I said, I already love this series, so I don't want to read too much into the synopsis of this one. In the little novella that comes before this, it's really just an introduction to the romance. You don't need to read that novella ahead of time. I did read it already. I really liked the main characters, so I am excited to continue on with the series. Just like last time, I think I am going to read these books in the order in which I just talked about them. So we are going to start with Not So Kind Regards by Clio Evans. I'm going to go give the first chapter a read, and I will come back to you once I am done. So I just finished chapter 1 of Kind Regards, and this was really good. The first chapter just jumps right into it. So we're following our heroine, who is a succubus, and she works on one floor of this building for this company of other monsters, and on a different floor is this company of witches, and the two of them don't get along. And our heroine gets into work and her coffee maker is gone, and she learns that it was the operations manager of the witches, and so she storms up there and barges into his office and finds him sleeping with one of his employees, and that kind of kicks off their banter, and she takes her coffee maker and goes back to her floor. And from what I understand, it is her having a romance with that operations manager and the employee that he was sleeping with. So it was really good. I really liked that first chapter. So I'm into it. I'm definitely going to continue on. This is a whole series, and I think that this author writes almost exclusively monster romances. So it's definitely one that I'm going to continue with. So next I'm going to go into Eden by Lily Mayne. So I'm going to go read that, and I will be right back. Okay, so I just finished chapter 1 of Eden by Lily Mayne, and this chapter, it did remind me how much I love this series. This opens up with, I assume, our main character and one of his friends. So our main character is disabled. He suffered from a very bad monster bite, and he no longer has the bottom half of his leg, and so he does have a prosthetic leg, and the two of them have been walking for a very long time. They are both part of the military and they've been paired up together for like 12 years. And they get back to the base that was supposed to come and pick them up, and they found the base destroyed. And all of the monsters that were held in that base are gone and missing, and the entire place is abandoned and has very clearly suffered a monster attack. And so they realize they need to get to the next base, and so they keep walking and they get to a convenience store and they see a monster out of their corner of the eye, and that is where chapter 1 ends. While this chapter didn't like give much in the first chapter, it did remind me of how much I love this world and this writing, so I am very excited to give this one a try. So from here, I'm gonna go to Titan by Gillian Graves. So let me find that one on my Kindle. My Kindle is a mess from these videos. I need to clean it up after these videos are done. So I'm gonna get into Titan if I can find it, and I will be right back. All right, so I just finished the first chapter of Titan by Gillian Graves, and this was not at all what I was expecting. So in this one, we are following our main character, Titan, who is a gargoyle, and he is one of 4 gargoyles left. At some point in history, there was some big war to protect a room of relics, and the key was lost. Now most of the gargoyles are gone, and now our hero and his brothers are trying to track down the key, and the heroine has the information that he needs, something like that. It wasn't at all what I was expecting, and the writing, it didn't really flow for me, so I'm not particularly drawn to this one right now. But next, I'm gonna go into Quark, which is the alien romance. So let's see if I can find that one on my Kindle. So I'm gonna go into Quark, mix things up a little bit, and then we will end on the Evade Ice one. So I will be right back. Okay, so I just finished the first chapter of Quark by Nikki Clark, and this was interesting. We are following these twin brothers who come to Earth. They are part of an alien race that is mostly humanoid, but they are like taller and larger, and they have heightened senses, and they can sense the emotions of people, of like all creatures, it seems like. So they come to Earth, and they're going to play some game that isn't explained, and they are smelling people, which sounds weird, but essentially they can like smell how people are feeling and like the feelings that they are exuding, and everyone on Earth is miserable. Shock. And so they're in Chicago. It has some pretty funny commentary on like men and women, because it talks about how men give off this very like dark energy, and about how women are constantly in fear of men, and they're like, the aliens are like, why are the women scared of men? Funny story. And so our hero and his brother are just like standing like in the middle of the sidewalk, and all of a sudden our hero sees this woman and has this immediate like pull towards her, and he's like overwhelmed by like his senses of her, and he realizes that she is his mate. And so his brother leaves the planet and our hero stays on Earth, and it is now 2 months, and he's essentially stalking her because he wants to like keep an eye on her and like get to know her, but he doesn't want to scare her. And so he's essentially stalking her. And they're at the movies, and it goes back and forth between their POV. And so she has like a pull towards him as well, but she doesn't understand it. And so she tries to talk to him during the movie, and he doesn't respond because he just like stares at her like all overwhelmed. And so she goes to her bus and he follows her, and he's like living like right down the street from her. He watches her all day while she works. She keeps showing up at the same movies as her. And so it was a little odd because he's stalking her. Because we are in like an alien's head, the writing is a little stilted because he doesn't think in the same way that humans do. And so the writing is quite choppy. And so it wasn't my favorite. I'm very curious about it because like alien stalker it's kind of strange. But I am interested to continue on with it. So the last one we're gonna try is Inextricably Tied by Aveda Weiss. Read this last one and then we will go through, rank them, and figure out what we're gonna read for the vlog. Okay, so I just finished the first chapter of Inextricably Tied by Aveda Weiss, and this was really good. So this opens up with our two main characters, Flint and Harbinger, and they have been a pair, like a team, for quite a few years at this point. And in Skin, they are taking a job and they get shot at. And because of that, Flint is now like even more protective of Harbin than he was before. And because of that, their work has really suffered because he is constantly talking her out of certain jobs because he thinks that they are dangerous or too dangerous. And now they are low on cash and they are going to maybe take a job from the OID, which is kind of like the government organization. The first chapter is essentially just a steamy scene in the car and them talking about needing another job. And so that's the opening of this book. I will say that Aveda Weiss's steamy scenes are always top tier. That was no exception in this one. So, okay, so we're going to quickly go into the ranking. So starting at number 5 was Titan by Gillian Graves. This just wasn't what I was expecting at all, and it didn't particularly draw me in. This is still an author that I want to give a try, but I'm not feeling particularly drawn to this one. It didn't do a whole lot for me in that first chapter. And then in number 4 is Quark by Nikki Clark. And this was interesting. I am curious to know how this one works out just because the first chapter was so odd. But again, I don't know if I'm feeling all that drawn to this one. I don't know about this one. So that's going to be in the number 4 spot. In the number 3 spot, I have Inextricably Tied by Aveda Weiss. I think the only reason that this one isn't higher is just because I just read Yours Insatiably. And so I think I just want a little bit of a break from this world. I think that's the only reason why this one is in the 3 spot, because this first chapter was really good, but I just read a book in the series. So, and then the number 1 and the number 2 are a little hard because what I have left is Eden and Kind Regards. And if I was going purely on what happened in the first chapter, I think Kind Regards is the like clear winner. Like a lot more happened in that chapter and everything like that. But I so desperately want to read Eden. But I know that part of the reason why I'm so drawn to Eden is because I've read a book in that series. The point of this is to pick the book based off of the first chapter. And I think that the Kind Regards one had a more interesting first chapter, but I think I'm just gonna go off of what I want. These are my rules, my game. So in the number 2 spot, I'm gonna put Kind Regards by Clio Evans. This is another one that I really liked and I really want to read it. And it totally like pulled me in with that first chapter. But in the number 1 spot, I'm putting Eden. It's what I want to read. That first chapter, even though nothing really happened in that first chapter, it just kind of like reintroduced the world. The writing is so well done. The characters are so fascinating. And I just want to be back in this world. I think that this whole post-apocalyptic world thing is really cool. And I love the monsters. And I want to know how Eden comes into play. I want to know how they get into the monsters. I want to know. That is book number 3 down for the upcoming vlog. So last little recap here. So this is the 3rd book for the vlog. I'm going to pop up the little thing right here. So we have Haunted by Christina C. Jones. We have Galen by Jacqueline Osborne. And then Eden by Lily Main. So those are the 3 of the 4 books for the upcoming vlog. Next week is the final installment of this, and that is going to be high and or epic fantasy. Let me know if you agree with my ranking or if you think I should have switched some of these around, but thank you so much for watching. I will catch you all in my next video. Bye!